your name already?
Marcus.
Marcus, all right. I have asked Marcus to share for 15 minutes or so their experience, strength, and hope with us.
All right. Thank you. What's up, guys? My name is Marcus. I am a heroin addict. Very grateful to be here. So I am a huge football fan, right? And I'm watching the Jags-Pats game yesterday. And, you know, the Jags, the first half, their defense is flying around. They get this lead, and I'm like, all right, so I'm a Bills fan, right? So I, by nature, hate the Patriots, and I hate Tom Brady. Now, I respect how good Tom Brady is, but I still despise him. So first three quarters, Jags are killing it. Their defense is running around. They're playing really good. They build a lead. And then the fourth quarter happens. They take their foot off the pedal. They're running like this high school offense. Tom Brady does some Tom Brady things. And, you know, you blink, and the Patriots are up, and they win. And so, you know, I don't know if I hate the Patriots more or love the Bills more, but I was really pissed off after the game, and I'm driving to a meeting, and I'm in my car, I'm like, damn, Tom Brady is like my disease. It's just like, I'm thinking like, every time that you think that you got Tom Brady beat, he does some crazy Tom Brady things, and he pulls out another fourth quarter comeback, and he wins again. And like, I'm 31, so I've seen Tom Brady win way too much. But I'm thinking like, this has been my battle with my addiction my entire life. Like, I've never had a problem. You know, when things would get bad enough, I would be able to stop, typically with the help of rehab or a detox. But I'd be able to stop. I'd be able to put together 30, 60, 90 days, 6 months. And then I would relax. I'd take my foot off the pedal. I would stop doing the things that got me to that point. And I'd blink, and I'd be 6 months back deep in a run. And so I guess that's my Tom Brady analogy for the day. But, you know, I've always been one of those people that likes to put things off to the very last second. I guess I'm like lazy by nature, especially for things that I don't want to do. And, you know, I'm one of those guys that's like, okay, I'm going to stop shooting heroin on Monday, or I'm going to stop shooting heroin on January 1st, stop shooting heroin tomorrow. It was always tomorrow. It was always the next day. And, like, that was always how I was as, like, a kid. I remember I'd have, like a huge test the next day, and I could, you know, I should have been studying and preparing, you know, for probably a couple of weeks, but it'd be like 4 o'clock after school. I'm like, all right, I'm going to watch some TV, play some video games, and I'm going to study, you know, after dinner. And then I'd be like, okay, I'm going to eat some dinner, watch some sports, and I'm going to study at 10. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm tired. I'm going to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and study before I get on the bus. And then I'd be on the bus studying. I'm like, shit, why did I fail this test? And that's just like, that's how I've always been. And I've always been a very insecure person. I grew up. I had a good upbringing, good childhood. I had a good family, good friends. Went to high school. I did well. I got decent grades. I played sports. I went to college. I did well in college. I graduated, and like things didn't really like get bad for me until after college. You know, I progressed down the list of substances. Like I started with alcohol. And, like, I drank alcohol. I'm like, oh, this is my thing. Like, this makes me become a better version of myself. I'm no longer insecure. I'm like, I can finally feel a part of something. I felt cool. And then I would try weed. I'm like, nah, this is me. Like, I can relax, play video games forever. You know, it made everything more fun. And then I tried coke, and I'm like, oh, like, okay, I'm mad confident. I can talk to anyone. You know, I could be at a bar. I could drink, you know, until 4 a.m. and not feel drunk. I'd spend like $300 and I'd wake up the next morning and I'd be like, I probably still have like 70, $80 left, that I have like 3/4 in my pocket. I'm like, all right, like I must have got robbed. I woke up a lot of nights thinking I got robbed, but really it was just, it was just me spending all my money. But I progressed all the way down the line. I started with alcohol and I finished with smoking crack and shooting dope. And, I got out of college and I came back to Albany and I experimented with coke, and I thought that was my thing. And, I got really, really, quit. It was like a weekend thing for like the first 3-4 months. And then I was doing it at my job. I started to spend all my money. I was stealing from the people that I loved. I was ripping off my best friends, stealing my parents' jewelry. And then I remember, like how bad it got with coke. I had this, my best friend, Jeff, like my brother, and his parents were like my parents. We're so close. And I remember his parents had gone away somewhere, and he had like some people over at his house, and me and him were kind of like the only kids that did coke. We'd like, sneak into the bathroom, do a couple lines, come back out. I didn't think anyone noticed, and I'm not sure if they did at that point, but, I was up until like 4 a.m. Everyone had passed out because they weren't doing coke. And I remember going up to his parents' room, just ravaging through all their stuff, stole all of his mom's rings and jewelry, took his dad's gold Rolex, found like $1,000 of cash. And like I remember like I couldn't wait until like 9 a.m. when like pawn shops opened, because I was going to go pawn all that stuff, which I did. I got all the money from it, and I bought coke, came back to my buddy Jeff's house, and then did that coke with Jeff after I had just ripped him off. And of course, like two weeks later, there are detectives at my house because I used my actual ID at the pawn shop. And like that was the first time I got arrested, and I got arrested a couple times, mainly just possession charges, because I'd have warrants out because I wouldn't pay all the fines that I owed from the previous court dates. So, but like it got really bad, and I got arrested, and I had to pay $20,000 restitution because I stole, like one of the rings I stole was like a family heirloom. It was like this huge diamond, which I didn't know it was a diamond. So I just got like $300 for like gold for it, and it was worth like $10,000. And I was like, shit, like, but his parents like had leniency on me, and instead of getting hit with the grand larceny charge, there was just 3 petty larceny charges, got dropped to a disorderly conduct, and I had to pay the restitution. But, that's when like my family knew that I had a problem. I didn't know that I had a problem, and it took me a while to realize I had a problem. I could lie to myself, I was the type of addict that could convince myself of anything. I thought because I was like, okay, everyone does coke, celebrities do coke, like I always thought I was different. I could manage the drugs that I was doing. I could do them casually. And, I just remember thinking that, I'm not a junkie because I don't have a crack stem in my mouth, and I'm not homeless, and I still have a job and a car and a place to live. And, within the next few years, all of those things ended up happening to me. Uppers and stimulants were always my things. I never touched pills. I remember I tore my ACL 2 years out of college playing basketball. And they gave me, I don't even know what painkillers they gave me, but they were they weren't good. I think they were like Hydros at the time. And I just didn't like the way they made me feel. I fell asleep on them. I just didn't like it. And I remember the first time I touched heroin, I was working this job selling copiers, and my territory was in Vermont, and I didn't go to Vermont once. I would just drive around all day, getting high, and then coming back and be like, no, didn't sell anything, sorry, You know, they weren't biting. And in a year of working that job, I didn't sell one thing. You know, I don't know how I stayed employed. I think they just, because they liked me or felt bad for me. But, you know, like my sales numbers were terrible. Like, I got things I got things in line. You know, it's about to be a big month. And, you know, every month was going to be a big month. And meanwhile, you know, I'm living not even paycheck to paycheck. You know, I get my direct deposit of like whatever base salary they're paying me, and it'd be gone in 3 hours. And then I'd be eating ramen the rest of the week, you know. But I met this kid who was living in a halfway house over in Albany, and he was like selling dope. He didn't have a car, and so I was like, "This is a brilliant idea. I'm just gonna drive this kid around all day. He can sell heroin, and then he'll give me like $50, and I'll go buy coke with it." And like that's what I did for like a month. And like one of the days he didn't have any money to give me. He's like, "Yo, just take a couple bags." And I was like, "Nah." I was like, "I don't do heroin." He's like, "Dude, just take a couple bags. You'll like it." He's like, "Just don't use a needle." I'm like, "All right." So like I like sniffed a bag of heroin. And I immediately was like, "Oh shit! Like this is where it's at. Like this makes me the best version of myself. I can go to work on this. I can be super productive. I sleep phenomenally. You know, it was just like the best thing that ever happened to me." And I was like, no more coke. Drinking immediately stopped. No more anything. And so I was like, the next day I hit him up and I was like, "Yo, can I get a couple more bags?" And I texted I wouldn't call him a friend. He was just like an associate. He lived in Albany. He was like a real scumbag, but I knew he did heroin. And so like I didn't know what a bundle was at the time, but I remember like we each got a bundle. And I was like, "All right, man." I was like, "You're going to hit me. You're going to stab me with this needle, and you're going to get me super high." Because I was afraid to do it myself. I didn't know how to do it. And I just remember, I was like, "All right, don't do too much because I don't want to die." So I don't know how much he put in there, but it was like him and his girlfriend. And I remember like him hitting me, and like, it's like the world was made for me. It was like the best feeling of my entire life. I remember like we were about to sit down and play Tecmo Super Bowl on like Super Nintendo or something. And like that's all I remember. And I like wake up, I come to, I OD'd. I come to, and they're dragging me down the stairs of their apartment, and they're both crying. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, what the hell is going on? And they're like, "Oh my God, we thought you died." I'm like, what were you guys doing? Like they're dragging me down the stairs, and they're like, "We're going to drive you to the hospital." They both didn't have cars. So they were literally just trying to get rid of my body because they thought I was dead. So, and, you would think that experience would be like enough for me to be like, okay, shooting heroin is probably not the best idea. But like, I was like, that's just like, that's how this disease is, man. I was like, all right, like, let's go. Like, I just won't shoot heroin with this kid anymore, I'll learn how to do it myself, So, but like that started, that day started a downhill descent for like the next 5 years, man. It was just rehab after rehab. I'd go to, my runs would last until I was out of money. I was out of people to rip off. People wanted to kill me because I'd like get all these drug dealers to like trust me because I'd be like wearing like a suit. And I'd buy drugs off them and give them money consistently for 2 weeks. And then, they trust me. And then I would like, "Yo, can you front me like, whatever, $200 worth?" And they're like, sure, you have a job. And then I would just never talk to them again. So, but, they'd last until I didn't have a place to live. I had no money. And then I'd go to rehab. That was like a 5-year cycle. I just kept doing the same thing. And, I went down to Florida for my first treatment, and I went to treatment. I was like, all right, it was like cool. Like it was like a break for myself. Like there was beaches, there were girls. It was like, I always go to rehab around like Christmas and Thanksgiving. Like that was my like go-to. That's like that's when I always relapse. And so I spent like 4 Christmases in a row in rehab, which it was not fun. You know, you don't get too many good things. And you're not able to give anything either, you know, when you spend the holidays in a rehab. But I stayed down in Florida for a little bit, and I stayed in a halfway house. I think in my 5 years of running around North Carolina and Florida, I think I stayed in like 19 different halfway houses, and I kept getting kicked out of them because I kept relapsing and I kept breaking the rules. And like, man, I just got so tired of doing the same thing. I remember, man, probably one of the dumbest things I've ever done. I was down in Florida. I convinced my parents to. I'd like got like this job at LA Fitness selling gym memberships. Thought I was like this big hot shot, making like $7 an hour basically. And I was like, yeah, Mom, you know, I got this awesome job, but I need my car. And like I just leased the car before I went to rehab, so it had like 7 miles on it. So they shipped down the car. And in Florida, there's like in Lake Worth and West Palm, there's like a halfway house every block. And you don't even know, but there's so many halfway houses down there, which is good. But, you know, drug dealers know where the halfway houses are. And, you know, I remember this Haitian dude, Moose, he'd always ride by our halfway house and like, you know, start up a conversation. He'd be like, yo, I got this, I got that, I got this, take my number down. I'd be like, nah, man, nah. And like one day he like forced me to take his number. So I was like, all right, yeah, I'll take your number down. And, you know, before you knew it, I wanted to get high. So I took my last paycheck from LA Fitness, which was like $60, I think. Sold my iPhone, sold everything that I had. And I wanted, like, he was like, yo, I got Dilaudid. So I was like, all right. Like, he didn't have heroin or whatever, but he didn't have Dilaudid. He's like, I only got crack. And I'd, like, never really smoked crack. So I was like, sure, let's do some crack. And so I started smoking crack, and I was like, oh, this is my drug. You know, I was like, you mix this, you do a little heroin. I was like, this is the best of both worlds. So I started smoking crack and got kicked out of my halfway house. I was living in my car. And then I ran out of everything, and my only thing of value left was my car, which I didn't even own. I was leasing it. And so I was like, dude, I had this brilliant plan in my head. I was like, okay, I'm going to sell these guys, because it was like a Haitian gang, basically, just living in this trap house. And I was like, all right, I'm going to sell these guys my car for drugs. I'm going to do all the drugs. I'm going to call my rehab back, get back into rehab. And then while I'm in rehab, so they can't kill me, I'm going to call and report the car stolen, and everything will be jolly. And so I sold this brand new car. I asked for like $20,000 worth of crack, and they're like, nah. So I ended up, they got me down to $1,000. So they gave me like $1,000 worth of crack, and I gave them my car. It was like it was like a 2 days worth of I walked probably about like 70 miles in those 2 days because, you know, I had no place, I didn't have a car to sleep in anymore. So, you know, it's really windy in Florida in the summertime, and like I'd be like in alleys, like ducking down, trying to like keep the wind out so I could smoke crack, and it wouldn't work. So I would just walk up and down the strip and hit every bathroom, and I would just go in there, smoke some crack, walk out, smoke some crack. And I did this for 2 days straight, and it was a really, really bad 2 days. And I called my rehab back up. I had like set all my luggage and like strategically around Lake Worth. I put it in a bush, and I think so the bums wouldn't steal it. But I forgot where I put all my stuff. So basically, I called my rehab back, and they just picked me back up, and I had my like shoes that I had been wearing for like a month straight, and I just had the clothes on my back, and I hadn't showered in like 3 weeks. And it was a humbling experience. They made me throw my shoes out when I got to rehab because they smelled so bad. But like that's where this disease took me. I can't imagine doing some of the things that I did today. Like the places where I'd go cop. Like Like I drive through. I was driving through Troy to go to a meeting yesterday, and I got like that weird feeling where you're like, I don't like to be here, you know, like because it just brings back all these memories of all the bad stuff that happened there, and it like scares me now. And back then, it didn't scare me. Like I would do anything. Like I would drive 3 hours to like grab $10 worth of crack or heroin. Like it didn't matter to me, and you know, something needed to change. I was introduced to the rooms. Like I don't think they had HA down in Florida when I was there, but I know they had CA, and my halfway houses made me go to AA. And so I was introduced to meetings, and I went to them, but I never took suggestions. I sat in the back. I played on my phone. I'd look at girls, and I always had, like they'd be like, you need to get a sponsor, you need to get connected, you need to talk to other men. And I always had this fear of like getting intimate with another dude. Like I couldn't go up to Joe or whoever, you know, who had like this great share at the meeting. I couldn't be like, hey bro, like that was awesome. Let me get your number. Could you help me out? Like I need help. I had a really big fear of asking for help. I always thought I could do it myself. And I've tried it every single way, you know. I've tried it. I've tried just smoking bud. I've tried just drinking. You know, I tried, I would always tell myself I could be a casual heroin user. You know, I could do like 3 days on, 3 days off, 3 days on, 3 days off, so I wouldn't get sick, but I wouldn't get physically addictive. And that never even lasted for a 3-day spurt, you know. So like I was just in this rut and in this terrible cycle, and I'd go to rehab, I'd get out, I'd get a good job again, and I'd build myself back up, and then I'd tear myself down again. And I'd save all this money, and then I'd self-sabotage, and I'd spend it in 3 days, you know? And it was just like so deflating to have to start your life over so many times. And I remember, like, I look back at some of the kids I went to high school and college with, and I was like, man, I should have, like, I had more potential than that dude. And he's got, like, a wife, kids, like a sweet job. And meanwhile, I'm starting back at square one, you know, stuck in a detox again. And that would, like, those type of thoughts they'd keep me out there for so long, because I just, you know, I would wallow in my self-pity. You know, there's this, I remember at the clubhouse in Florida, there was this, like, upside down picture on the wall, and it said PLOM, and I was like, what the hell is plum, you know? And some old timer was like, oh, it's poor little old me. And like that was me. I always felt so sorry for myself, and I thought I was so unlucky, and I caught all the bad breaks, and like every single bad break I caught was because of drugs. Like I wasn't unlucky, I was just a drug addict, you know? And you know, I remember I met a girl in rehab one of the third times in Florida. I like thought we were in love. You know, decided to move to North Carolina with her to live with her parents, which was a phenomenal idea. Like, you know, we were getting high from the jump, and like we were stealing her parents' stuff. It was the worst relationship of all time. But I stayed with her for 2 years, and like she was just my running buddy, and she was a terrible running buddy because she'd like disappear for like weeks at a time, and then she'd come back, and I'm like, what the hell? And like I knew what she was doing. Like you know, I had a lot of drug dealers, and so they'd be like, oh, I saw so and so over here with so, and so like I knew what she was doing. I just didn't care anymore. It was just like whatever, you know, like I didn't care about myself. I kind of got to the point where I was kind of like, I was too scared to kill myself, but I kind of got resigned to the fact that I was going to die a drug addict. I just didn't know when, and I just really didn't care if, like, I didn't care about anything. I didn't care about my family. I didn't care about my appearance. I didn't care about my job. I definitely didn't care about my girlfriend, and, like, something just needed to change. And I remember one night, it was like the last night that I got high in North Carolina, or I tried to get high. I was in my apartment that my parents had, of course, enabled they like paid for my apartment for me because they were super big enablers. And they're like, oh, we'll keep you off the streets. We'll just get you this sick apartment. And it was like fully furnished, and it had like the 60-inch screen TV that came with the place on the wall. And I had like no money left. I had already called my parents, and it was around Thanksgiving. I was like, all right, I'm gonna come back up to New York, and I'm gonna go to rehab again. And like I wanted to get high like one last time, but I had no money, and of course my girlfriend had no money. So I was like, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to rip this TV off the wall, and we're going to sell it to our drug dealer. And we didn't have any tools, so it literally took us like 4 hours to get this thing down. And we had to lug it out of the place into this guy's car, and we got a bundle for it. And it didn't even get me high, so I never even had that like last send-off that everyone wants, And I just remember I was on my way to rehab in Connecticut. I flew back, had Thanksgiving, and then the parents drove me up to this place in Connecticut. And like 5 minutes away from the rehab, like the landlord of the apartment called. I was like, oh, don't answer that, please. And they're like, yeah, we're missing a 60-inch screen TV. I was like, shit. So, I could have gone to jail for that for sure. And, of course, my parents bailed me out one last time. But I went to this place, and it was more holistic, focused on meditation. It was focused on the spiritual side. And, that's kind of what was... I always had something missing my entire life. I never really knew what it was. But it was like this spiritual side of me, and I needed to find a higher power. I always believed in God, but my prayers were reserved to I hope I have an extra bag in this bundle, or I hope I'm not dope sick tomorrow, or please don't let me go to jail tonight, or something like that. There are always foxhole prayers. But I got out, I came back to Albany, and I met this guy, this sponsor of mine, and he's also a pastor. So he had 30 years. He was a heroin addict and alcoholic, and I was introduced to him. He became my sponsor, and he's like, okay. He's like, take 6 months, listen to me. We're gonna work the steps. You're gonna go to meetings. You're gonna get a commitment. You are going to stay free from every substance. That means no weed, no alcohol, nothing. And he's like, you're going to do everything that I say. And then after 6 months, if you don't like where your life's at, go back to, doing whatever it is, that you were doing. And I did that for 6 months. And my life got significantly better. But I was still missing another side to it. I was still going to meetings, but I wasn't getting connected. I'd go to meetings, and I'd go to a lot of meetings, and I'd get a lot from the meetings, but I wouldn't stay around afterwards. I wouldn't get there early. I wouldn't make friends in the program. I was kind of just be like a loner, and I still had my friends that weren't in recovery and didn't really care if I was in recovery. And so, I got a year, and then I relapsed. I went back out only for a week, which is surprising because usually when I relapse, I'm out there for a long time because I'm afraid to come back to the rooms, and I'm afraid to show my face because I think people are going to judge me. And, of course, I'm insecure, so, it's the worst thing in the world to come back after a relapse for me. But, something clicked, and that relapse happened a little over 2 years ago. And, since then, I've worked the steps. I still have that guy in my life. He's not my sponsor anymore. I have a new sponsor, but we're going through the Bible together. So he's still a really big mentor for me. And he's a godsend. I still talk to him all the time. And now, this time around, these last 2+ years, I have made so many changes. I've kind of came out of my shell. I've made a lot of friends in the program. And it's been like amazing. Like 98% of the people like I talk to and that text me on a daily basis are in recovery. If I miss a meeting, I have guys calling me to make sure I'm okay. I've gotten better at picking up the phone and asking for help, because usually that's still hard for me. I still go through periods where I'll struggle a little bit, and weird thoughts will creep into my head, and when I get a craving, it's like I start to shake. Like it's like I start to sweat, and it's just like when that happens, like I need to be proactive, and I need to call someone. And in the past, I wouldn't. I would just I'd sit it out. Like, okay, I go back and forth in my head. Like, I know I shouldn't do this. And then within 30 minutes, my addiction wins, my disease wins, and I'm getting high again. So, I'm extremely grateful for this program and for the people in it. This is the only thing, working the steps, doing a fourth and a fifth step, really changed my life and my outlook on life. Like I always thought the people that I hated or had resentments towards, it was always, because of what they did to me. But like looking back on it, like all these resentments and everything, basically everything that I did in my life, all the bad things that happened to me were a direct result of me and me doing the wrong thing and me getting high and me putting a needle in my arm. And like, since I stopped doing those things, like I still have problems today, but they're not problems that I can't deal with. That I have friends in the program. Like I've gotten connected, I'm probably still not connected enough, as Brian would always say. I need to get connected more, and I need to do the work. If I'm going through something, I need to do the work, and I need to write it out, and I need to talk to people about it. And he's right. Like I do need to do that, and that's helped. I can always improve upon my recovery. I can always improve upon my spirituality. The spirituality side to it has been huge. I didn't have that one big bang moment, that one huge spiritual experience. I kind of wish I did, but I didn't. That people describe. I've kind of always had these little spiritual experiences where okay, that was God. And every time I have one of those little experiences, my faith grows more. And every time my faith grows more, I'm able to trust my higher power more, and I'm able to turn my will over to Him more graciously. And I need to do that every single day, and I need to keep my guard up every single day, because my disease will never be defeated. Tom Brady hopefully one day will be, but I know that for me this is an ongoing battle, and every time that I've thought I had it, and I relax a little bit, it's not good, and I end up going back out there. So, that's basically all I got. Thanks.